Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about 5 players who will win you your fantasy league in 2023 fantasy football. But before we could do a nice deep dive, Michael Phelps style, into these top 5 league winners, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, then please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure they do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. So without further ado, let's get into 5 players who will win you your league in 2023. We begin with player number 1, Mark Andrews, tight end of the Baltimore Ravens, current underdog ADP tight end 2 at pick 29.7. Last year, he finished as the tight end 4.5 PPR and the tight end number 3 in half PPR points per game. He played in 15 games last season, but it is important to note that Lamar Jackson only played in 12 games, so not all of Mark Andrews' games were the best because of the fact that Lamar was not there. Mark Andrews had 113 targets, 7.5 per game, ranking 3rd at tight end, 73 receptions, 4.9 per game, number 3, 847 receiving yards, 56.5 per game, you guessed it, number 3 at tight end, and 5 total touchdowns, 8th at tight end. This Baltimore Ravens team had a bunch of new additions added to the offense this offseason. The biggest, in my opinion, is not the players that they added, it's the addition of Todd Monken, offensive coordinator now of the Baltimore Ravens. If we know anything from Todd Monken's past in football, is that this man loves a nice tight end. He loves to utilize the tight end position. Mark Andrews was already in a scenario with a quarterback in Lamar Jackson who loves throwing to the tight end on a team that likes to utilize the tight end, and now they are going to utilize the tight end even more. Another addition that I think is huge for Mark Andrews is Odell Beckham Jr., because Odell Beckham Jr. is an excellent red zone threat. He can make guys miss, he can jump up and catch a lot of things, even though he's getting a little bit older, even though some people are worrying about the fact that he is coming off of that injury, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, the defense is still going to be worried about Odell when they line up against him. And that adds even more upside to Mark Andrews, because in the past, when you have these skinny bastards like Rashad Master-Bateman, Hollywood Brown, and Brashad Perryman out there as your wide receiver core, guys built like sticks, the defense knew what was happening. Lamar was either going to run the ball, stiff arm some poor bastard into Middle Earth, and run directly into the end zone. They were going to hand it off, or the ball was going directly to Mark Andrews because he's this huge behemoth of a man. But now, they have to worry about a lot more weapons. They also draft Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers isn't the biggest guy, but just a lot more options to give the ball to in the red zone, which is going to mean that Mark Andrews can't be keyed in on in the red zone, which is a huge help for him potentially scoring 10-plus touchdowns in 2023. In terms of efficiency stats, he was really good last year. Mark Andrews was number 2 in Dominator rating with a 29.5%, 2.19 yards per route run, 4th, and 2.01 yards per team pass attempt, 2nd. Mark Andrews, again, gets an offensive coordinator that loves him and loves the tight end position. They add more offensive weapons to take away defensive presence in the red zone. He has a quarterback that loves throwing him the fucking ball. And if Mark Andrews and Lamar Jackson are able to stay healthy, you better believe Mark Andrews could be the tight end 1 in fantasy football. And the best part about it is you don't have to draft him in the 1st or the 2nd round. When you draft Travis Kelce, sure, I love Travis Kelce, but it's like wrapping a metaphorical condom over your roster. It is incredibly safe in the 1st round. Sometimes people even take him as high as the 5th overall pick, where you can get a guy like Austin Eckler, Christian McCaffrey, Cooper Kupp, Tyreek Hill. So if you take Kelce, you're missing out on those stud guys in round number 1. Sometimes Kelce falls to round number 2, but very unlikely. Mark Andrews, every single draft I've done on Underdog Fantasy is either an early 3rd round pick or a middle 3rd round pick. Sure, there are running backs and receivers I like in the 3rd round, but I would much rather take one of those studs in the 1st round and then be able to get Mark Andrews in the 3rd round, who I think has the upside to be the tight end number 1. I think even if Kelce and Andrews play all games in 2023, Andrews could potentially pass him. And while I love other late round tight ends, it just feels so great to every single week not have to be like, oh man, do I want to start David Njoku or Dalton Schultz? Who's got the better matchup? All this. You don't have to think about anything. You just fucking play Mark Andrews. It doesn't matter if he's playing against the 85 Bears. The guy has the upside to be one of the best tight ends in fantasy football that week, if not the best tight end. Staying in the AFC North, player number 2 is Joe Mixon, running back of the Cincinnati Bengals, underdog ADP running back 15 at pick 49.9. Now, I know early on in the offseason, Joe Mixon's ADP was a lot deeper in drafts. He was coming off as like the running back 20, sometimes even as far as the running back 24, because people were worried about the suspension. But now today is July 5th as you're watching today's video. Hope everyone had a great 4th of July. But nothing has happened yet. Alvin Kamara, who we knew prior to last season what he did, it was guaranteed lock of the century. He did what they alleged happened. He didn't even get suspended that year. So if they're going to suspend Joe Mixon, which I don't think they're going to, it's not going to be this year. It's just not going to be. It's too late for that to happen, in my opinion. Last year, Mixon was the running back 12.5 PPR and the running back 8.5 PPR points per game. I think most people, the consensus, the people drafting on Underdog and on other fantasy sites have realized that it's an incredibly low chance that Mixon actually gets suspended. 14 games played in 2022. He had 212 carries, 14.1 per game, number 16. 826 rushing yards, 55.1 per game, number 25. 74 targets, 4.9 per game, number 7. 60 receptions, 4 per game, number 5. 441 receiving yards, 29.4 per game, number 6. And 9 total touchdowns, 14th at running back. When it comes to Joe Mixon, I think people are overthinking things. I understand why he's not ranked as a top 10 back, because the top 10 running backs are loaded in the rankings, right? You got guys like Tony Pollard, like Christian McCaffrey, Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley, all of these elite guys ranked super high, and I get it. But after you get past, I would say, running back 11, things start to open up. You got Travis Etienne, Najee Harris, Jahmyr Gibbs being ranked ahead of Joe Mixon, and I think Joe Mixon could easily outscore all of them. Again, he's on one of the best offenses in the NFL with a team that is going to score a bunch of points. Both the Ravens and the Bengals are going to score a bunch of points. And if the Bengals score 32 plus points in a game, which wouldn't shock anyone, Mixon has the upside to drop 25, 30 plus fantasy points in those games. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. Joe Mixon isn't the most efficient back. 3.7 true yards per carry last year, 61st. 4.7 yards per touch, 35th. But it's very similar, in my opinion, to the case of Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is not the most efficient running back in the NFL. He is far from it. But we like him because he is guaranteed to get touches. And in the red zone, he gets some solid usage. I don't think Joe Mixon's the best red zone running back in the NFL. But I digress. The Bengals' depth chart behind Joe Mixon is not good at all. They've got guys like Travion Williams, Chase Browns, and Captain America, Chris Evans. None of those guys are going to be able to surpass Joe Mixon. Samaje Perine is now in Mile High in Denver. There's no competition behind Joe Mixon. So even if Joe Mixon struggles a little bit, it won't fucking matter because there is no one taking his job unless there's an injury. Knock on wood. Joe Mixon is now on a team with a better offensive line. In years prior, especially if you remember in the Super Bowl, the offensive line got folded like a table. The offensive line was getting plowed, and Joe Mixon was getting eviscerated behind the offensive line. He stood no chance, and he still got back up after getting he got fucking hit with the 619 Rey Mysterio. Looks like he's done for. He gets back up because he's a beast like that. But the offensive line started off last year. They were a little cold, right? They were still letting the defense kind of do whatever they want, right? The offensive line parted like Moses parted the Red Sea, and Joe Burrow was still getting pounded back there like his name was Mia Malkova. But as the season went along, the run blocking got a lot better. The pass blocking got a lot better. Joe Mixon finished with a 74.6 run blocking rating, 14th in the NFL, and I think that could even go as high as the top 10 this season as the offensive line continues to build chemistry. So don't overthink Joe Mixon. You've got one of the better running backs in the NFL on one of the best teams in the NFL with a great offensive line with no competition behind him. Don't fall victim to the fact that maybe he gets suspended. He's not going to get suspended. Let's be honest. I would put it at like a 3% chance that he gets suspended. I've been drafting him in so many underdog drafts. And again, his ADP continues to rise. Moving now to league winner number 3, we got Aaron Jones sticking with the running back position of the Green Bay Packers. Current underdog ADP running back 17 at pick 53.9. But before we break down Aaron Jones some more and get to player number 4 and number 5, I would like to give you guys a quick word from our friends and our sponsor over at Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy is the best place to play fantasy football best ball this summer. If you don't know what best ball is, it's the best part about fantasy football, the draft. And that's it. There's no waiver, there's no in-season management, and there's no trades. You just draft your team, and at the end of every single week, Underdog automatically puts your highest scores into the lineup for you. They have the biggest fantasy football contest ever. $25 to enter, 150 max entries, $3 million to first place, $15 million in total prizes. If that sounds a little too pricey for you, you can go ahead and wait. There's going to be puppy tournaments that drop for $5. There's Pomeranian tournaments that drop for $3. There's some $4 contests that are going to drop as well. And if you don't want to join a tournament, you can just do a regular draft on there. There are drafts as low as $3 where you just draft against 11 other people. And at the end of the season, first place gets the money, second place gets some money as well. If that sounds interesting to you, I think it's probably the best way to do mock drafts right now because everyone actually cares about things and you can actually win money at the end of the season. Make sure you use promo code Notorious for a first match deposit bonus of up to $100 or click on the link in the video description. If you deposit $100, you get an additional $100, $50, additional $50, $25, and additional $25. So it's a 100% first match deposit bonus of up to $100. I draft on there all the time. I'm going to start streaming on there soon, so make sure you guys check that out. Again, Underdog Fantasy, link in the video description. They also have a mobile app. So back into Aaron Jones. Again, Underdog ADP, running back 17, pick 53.9. Running back 9 last year in half PPR. Running back 11 in half PPR points per game, tied with Jamal with 2 A's Williams. Now, I know you can't just take what happened last year and throw it onto this season, right? Jamal Williams probably isn't going to score 17,000 fucking touchdowns in 2023. But Aaron Jones is in a situation, sure, slightly worse, going from Rodgers to Jordan Love. And by slightly, I mean definitely worse. But at the end of the day, that just tells me the team's going to want to run more. And Jordan Love, being a young quarterback, I get he's been in the league for a couple years, but he hasn't really started often. When he gets scared, he's just going to dump it off. Throw it to the motherfucker, who's one of the better pass-catching running backs in the NFL. Now, he's no Alvin Kamara, he's no McCaffrey, but he doesn't have to be. 72 targets last year, 4.2 per game, number 8, 59 receptions, 3.5 per game, number 6, 395 receiving yards, 23.2 per game, number 10. He had 213 carries, 12.5 per game, number 15, 1,121 rushing yards, 65.9 per game, number 9, and he had 7 total touchdowns, 19th at running back. Now, I know, but Nick, they have A.J. Dillon, and I like A.J. Dillon because he's going to get some run, right? And if something happened to Aaron Jones, knock on wood, A.J. Dillon has that upside to be the league winner. But this is a team that still has a great defense. And if Jordan Love isn't awful, they're going to be up in games and they're going to be able to run the rock gently down the stream. Aaron Jones is a running back that has scored 5+ touchdowns in a game in the National Football League. Aaron Jones is a guy that can put your team on his back. Darren Sharper, hold my dick. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. Aaron Jones is that good, and he's being discredited not because of his skill, not even because of Aaron Jones, because of A.J. Dillon behind him. He is being discredited because of Jordan Love. People are panicking, they're shitting their pants because of Jordan Love. Jordan Love doesn't have to be the next Brett Favre, the next Aaron Rodgers for Aaron Jones to succeed. Aaron Jones, also very efficient. Very efficient, and they have a pretty decent offensive line. Not one of the best in the NFL, but pretty decent. 5.02 yards per carry, 7th. 5.6 yards per touch, 12th. 893 yards created, 52.5 per game, number 8, and 80 evaded tackles, 4.7 per game, number 9. All 3 of these players, besides Mark Andrews, I would say, I think people are really just overthinking too much. With Mixon, people are worried about the suspension. They're too worried about the fact that maybe Mixon wasn't the best all of last season, but you can blame the offensive line on that. People are worried about Jordan Love, so they're panicking about Aaron Jones. Don't worry about Aaron Jones. He's going to get touches, he is going to get targets, and he has the upside to win you your week in any given matchup. So, again, don't be silly. Don't overthink players that are clearly efficient, that are clearly good, and on teams that are probably better than people actually think. And again, the fact that they have a great defense, they're going to be able to churn the ball a lot late in games. Moving now to player number 4, we got Jahan Dotson, wide receiver of the Washington Commanders. Left hand up. Who are we? The Commanders. Underdog ADP, wide receiver 39 at pick 74.1. Now, the quarterback situation in Washington is definitely a little bit gross. Not going to say that it's pretty. Sam Howell had a great game at the end of last season. The Cowboys kind of needed that game. But let's be honest with you, I'm not going to jizz in my pants like that song by The Lonely Island because Sam Howell had one great game, and I think Sam Howell's the second coming of Patrick Mahomes. I just don't think that. Or they got Jacoby Brissett. which to me is better than Carson Wentz last season or Taylor Heineke. Wide receiver 15.5 PPR last year, wide receiver 38. He played in 12 games, but only had 10 starts. 61 targets, 5.1 per game, number 70. 35 receptions, 2.9 per game, number 77. 523 receiving yards, 43.6 per game, number 63. And 7 total touchdowns, number 14. So all those stats I just read off, right, they're not going to make you light up inside when I read them, right? You're not just, ooh, I need to get Jahan Dotson. But the further you dive into things, the more you dig into things, the more you realize that Jahan Dotson is a really good wide receiver, and again, last year was his rookie year. 6.6 target accuracy, 91st. So again, the quarterback play last year was really fucking bad, right? You already knew that. If you watched any Commanders game, you would have known that, and you probably didn't see them a lot if you watched on Red Zone because they weren't scoring a lot of points. 14.9 yards per reception, 16th. 2.14 fantasy points per target, 6th. And 50% contested catch rate, 19th. At wide receiver. And last year, when they started to push Dotson up in the offense, when they started to really try to utilize this guy, he had spike week games. At the end of the season, he had 2 top 12 finishes, and he also had 6 top 25 finishes. So when they were using this guy, he was finishing well for fantasy football. And he's wide receiver 39. Now, am I going to rank him inside the top 24? Of course not, because the wide receiver position is super deep. But Jahan Dotson has that top 24 upside, whether it is Sam Howell or Jacoby Brissett. So, I know I like Terry McLaurin. I've seen people even talk Jahan Dotson like he's going to finish ahead of Terry McLaurin. I think that's a little bit of wishful thinking. But they bring in Eric Bieniemy. This offense should be able to take that next step up again, even if you're not super confident in Sam Howell or Jacoby Brissett. The defense, this was a defense that's been really overhyped in the past. Chase Young, this, that, and the other thing. Hasn't been the best. I think Jahan Dotson is going to be in a lot of situations late in games to catch balls, and he looked pretty decent in college, has the high NFL draft capital. Sure, they have McLaurin. They also have Curtis Samuel, as Captain Spock in the comments likes to call him. Let's be honest. He's not that great. So Jahan Dotson's in a really good situation, I think, in year number 2 to have that second year breakout. Moving to player number 5, this is where things start to get a little bit spicy. We got Anthony Richardson, quarterback of the Indianapolis Colts, underdog ADP quarterback 11 at pick 100.3. Now, let's be completely honest with you. While on underdog, he's the quarterback number 11. That's very high compared to where he gets drafted in most mock drafts that I've done. In a lot of mock drafts, Anthony Richardson comes off as like the quarterback 17. I think people, the more casual drafters, are going to start to catch on to Anthony Richardson, but right now that just really isn't the case. The landing spot for me in the draft was really good for the Colts. I think if he landed in a team that didn't have as many weapons, now again, it's not like Michael Pittman, Jelani Woods, Jonathan Taylor, Josh Downs, Alec Pierce. It's not like they're the best fucking offensive core in the NFL, but there's definitely worse landing spots for Anthony Richardson to have, obviously. Last year, Matt Ryan sucked ass, right? Let's just be honest. He was fucking awful. And I've made jokes that he was like Weekends in Bernie style of Matt Ryan out there, right? That was not the Matt Ryan we've seen in the past. Matt Ryan looked washed in 2021. I said, it's just the Falcons. He is just the Falcons. Like, it is what it is. And then 2022, the guy looked like he was Stevie Wonder out there trying to throw the ball. So, Matt Ryan sucked. And then they brought in Sam Ehlinger to play. Sam Ehlinger sucks. We all knew that. They fire Frank Reich. They bring in their old center to be the head coach of the team. But now we have Richardson under Shane Steichen, who had Hurts playing amazing last year. Now, am I saying Anthony Richardson is Jalen Hurts? No. But could he, both rushing quarterbacks, be able to be unlocked in this offensive system? Now, Gardner Minshew is there, but if I'm being honest with you, if Gardner Minshew maybe gets 2 games to start the season, I don't even think that's going to happen. I really don't. Anthony Richardson's stats are not mouthwatering. They're not. 12 games played, 327 passing attempts at Florida in 2022, 2,549 passing yards, 7.8 yards per attempt, 17 passing touchdowns with 9 interceptions, 654 rushing yards. He ranked first out of quarterbacks all time charted for athleticism according to Player Profiler. Again, I'm not trying to say that this guy is some prolific fucking passer that is going to go out there and look like Patrick Mahomes. But he has decent weapons. I think the offensive line's better than most people give it credit for. And he's got a head coach that knows how to run a system where Anthony Richardson can run. when you get Anthony Richardson in open space, the guy makes things happen. Now, if he starts coming off the board in regular fantasy leagues as the quarterback 11, I might start to get a little bit more nervous, right? Because then, right now, I don't necessarily feel like if I draft Richardson, I can just draft Richardson. Because I think there's a chance Gardner plays maybe 2 or 3 games. But if we're in August, and Richardson's locked and loaded, ready to go for week 1, even though I don't think he's going to be the dominating defense's 50 Shades of Grey style the first couple games of the season, I think he has that upside. Again, running quarterbacks are just so overpowered in fantasy in 4-point per passing touchdown leagues. They just are. This guy only has to run. He runs a touchdown in, he gets 2 extra points than a quarterback who throws one in. Quarterback normally has to throw 25 yards to get 1 point. Richardson just runs 10 and he gets 1 point. Richardson has all the makings of the Konami code quarterback, the league-winning quarterback, the league-breaking quarterback that you find deep in drafts. I think people are going to start catching on. Again, I don't think he's like the safest pick, far from it. But when it comes to upside, when it comes to taking that shot, Stephen Curry from 3 from deep, I'm taking it on Anthony Richardson. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you ended up enjoying today's video, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below as well as hitting that like button. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. I love each and every single one of you guys so much. I hope you have a great rest of your guys' day. Make sure you guys check out Underdog Fantasy, link in the video description. I hope you guys all have a great rest of your guys' day. Hope you had a great 4th of July. Hope you had fun. I love you guys all so much. Have a great rest of your guys' day. And as always, good boy!